The red sand burned under the twin suns of Kepler Form 42b as Hanwoo wiped sweat from his forehead. His environmental suit kept him alive, but the heat still pressed against him like a heavy blanket. He had been walking across the desert for 3 hours, collecting rock samples and taking readings with his scanner. The mining expedition had been on this planet for 2 weeks. Commander Li Bo wanted his team to map every inch of the northern continent before they started drilling for the rare crystals buried deep underground. Hanwoo did not mind the long walks. As the team's xenobiologist, he found the empty desert peaceful compared to the noisy base camp. His scanner beeped twice, then went silent. Hanwoo stopped and looked at the small device. The readings showed something large buried just ahead, but the signals were strange. They did not match any mineral patterns in his database. He walked forward slowly, his boots crunching on the crystalline sand. The scanner beeped faster as he approached a small hill, but as Hanwoo got closer, he realized it was not a hill at all. Something massive was buried in the sand. Hanwoo knelt down and brushed away the red crystals with his gloved hands. Beneath the sand, he found scales. They were larger than his palm, colored like liquid gold and silver mixed together. They caught the sunlight and threw it back in rainbow patterns. His heart started beating faster. This was not a rock formation. This was alive. Hanwoo stood up and activated his radio. "Base camp, this is Hanwoo. I need Dr. Park Soo to come to my location immediately." "What did you find out there?" came the voice of his mentor through the static. "I think I found a life form. A very large one." There was silence for a moment. "Are you sure? Our scans showed this planet was dead." Hanwoo looked down at the scales, glinting in the sand. "I am sure. Please hurry." While he waited, Hanwoo began carefully clearing more sand away. The scales continued in a long line, disappearing into the dune. Whatever this creature was, it was enormous. As he worked, his scanner picked up a very faint heartbeat, slow but steady. 20 minutes later, Dr. Park Soo arrived with 2 security guards and Commander Li Bo. They all stared at what Hanwoo had uncovered. "My God," whispered Dr. Park Soo. "How long do you think it has been buried here?" "Not long," Hanwoo said, pointing to his scanner. "It is still alive, but barely." Commander Li Bo frowned. "We need to report this to headquarters immediately. This changes everything." "Wait," Hanwoo said. "We should help it first." "Help it?" The commander shook his head. "We do not know what this thing is. It could be dangerous." Hanwoo knelt down again and placed his hand gently on the scales. They were warm even through his glove. "It is dying. Look at these wounds." As they cleared more sand, deep cuts became visible along the creature's side. The wounds were old but still bleeding a silver liquid that sparkled like starlight. Whatever had attacked this being had used claws as long as Hanwoo's arm. "We should move back to a safe distance," one of the security guards said, but Hanwoo stayed where he was. Something about the creature called to him. Maybe it was the way the scales dulled when clouds passed over the sun, or how the slow heartbeat reminded him of a sleeping child. He could not explain it, but he felt that this being was not dangerous. "I'm going to give it water," Hanwoo announced. "Absolutely not," Commander Li Bo said. "That is against all protocols." "Sir, with respect, our protocols never covered finding a dying alien on a planet that was supposed to be empty." Dr. Park Soo put a hand on the commander's shoulder. "Let him try. If we are going to study this creature, we need it alive." Hanwoo took a water container from his pack and slowly poured some of the liquid over the worst wound. The silver blood seemed to absorb the water immediately. The scanner showed, the heartbeat growing slightly stronger. Suddenly, the sand in front of Hanwoo shifted. A massive head emerged, easily twice the size of his entire body. The creature's eyes opened slowly. They were the color of amber honey, ancient and intelligent. When those eyes focused on Hanwoo, he felt something touch his mind. Images flashed through his thoughts. A great city of crystal spires reaching toward the stars. Beings like this one, but smaller, swimming through the air around the towers. Then darkness, fire, screaming. the city falling into ruins as black shapes with too many teeth tore everything apart. The creature's thoughts were like whispers in his head. It called itself something that sounded like wind through stone, but Han Wu could not pronounce it. He decided to call it Silthara, after an old Korean legend about a dragon that protected a mountain village. More images came. Silthara had been alone for a very long time, guarding something important buried deep under the desert. The black creatures had found it 3 days ago and attacked. Silthara had fought them off, but the wounds were too severe. It had crawled, here to die in peace. "What are you doing?" Dr. Park Soo asked. "You have been staring at it for 5 minutes without moving." Han Wu blinked and looked up at his colleagues. "It is trying to communicate. It is telepathic." Commander Li Bo stepped back. "All the more reason to maintain distance." But Han Wu ignored him. He poured more water over Silthara's wounds and opened his mind to the creature's thoughts. He tried to send back images of his own, his home on Earth, his family, his desire to help. Silthara's great head tilted slightly. In Han Wu's mind, he felt something like surprise, then cautious hope. No one had shown the ancient being kindness for longer than it could remember. Over the next hour, Han Wu used his basic medical supplies to clean Silthara's wounds as best he could. The security guards watched nervously while Dr. Park Soo took readings and measurements. Commander Li Bo spoke quietly into his radio, reporting to the expedition leaders back on Earth. As the twin suns began to set, Silthara's heartbeat grew, stronger. The creature managed to lift its head higher and look directly at Han Wu. In that gaze, Han Wu saw intelligence older than human civilization, and something else. Gratitude. Through their mental connection, Silthara shared one more image. Deep underground, in chambers that humans had not yet discovered, lay knowledge that could advance Earth's technology by thousands of years. But it also contained dangers that could destroy worlds if misused. Silthara had been guarding these secrets alone for centuries, waiting for someone worthy to pass them to. Perhaps the ancient being thought as it looked at the human who had shown mercy to a dying stranger that someone had finally arrived. Han Wu felt the weight of that trust settling on his shoulders. He did not fully understand what Silthara was offering, but he knew his life had just changed forever. As night fell over the red desert, Han Wu made his choice. He would return tomorrow, alone if necessary, to continue helping his new friend heal. Whatever consequences that brought, he could live with them. What he could not live with was walking away from a being that had reached out to him across the vast darkness between species, asking for nothing but offering everything in return. 3 years had passed since Han Wu first found Silthara dying in the red sand. Now he stood in his small kitchen on Earth, making breakfast for his wife Nari and watching the morning news. The reporter was talking about new mining operations on distant worlds, but Han Wu's mind was elsewhere. He still thought about Silthara every day. The expedition had ended 6 months after their first meeting. Commander Li Bo had decided the planet was too dangerous after more attacks from the black creatures. The team had packed up and left, but Han Wu had spent every possible moment with the ancient serpent before departure. Silthara had healed completely by then. The creature was magnificent when healthy, its scales shining like liquid metal in the desert sun. More importantly, their telepathic bond had grown stronger. Han Wu had learned that Silthara's people had once traveled between stars like humans traveled between cities. They had built wonders that made human technology look like stone tools. But the black creatures, which Silthara called the Devourers, had destroyed everything. They consumed not just planets, but the life force of entire species. Silthara's people had fought them for 1,000 years before finally falling. Only Silthara remained, guarding the last library of their civilization. "You look tired," Nari said, entering the kitchen. She was a communications specialist who worked with the Deep Space Monitoring Station. They had met 2 years ago when Han Wu returned from the expedition, and married 6 months later. "Just thinking about work," Han Wu said, kissing her cheek. Nah. Ri poured herself coffee and sat at the small table. The same work that gives you nightmares? Hanwoo had never told her about Silthara. How could he explain that he had befriended an ancient alien dragon that spoke through thoughts? Nari would think he had lost his mind. The expedition was difficult, he said instead. Some things are hard to forget. Their home was a research station built into the side of a mountain, far from any cities. Hanwoo had chosen it because he wanted quiet, but also because something inside him said to stay in wild places. He felt like he was waiting for something, though he could not say what. That evening, Nari worked late at the monitoring station while Hanwoo walked alone through the forest behind their home. The trees were old and thick, creating deep shadows even in the early moonlight. He often took these walks when he felt restless. He was following a familiar path when he heard something large moving through the trees ahead. Hanwoo stopped and listened. The sound was rhythmic, like something very heavy sliding across the ground. A massive shape emerged from behind a cluster of pine trees. Even in the dim light, Hanwoo recognized the golden scales immediately. Silthara, he whispered. The ancient serpent raised its great head and looked down at Hanwoo. In his mind, he felt the familiar touch of the creature's thoughts, warm and welcoming like greeting an old friend. "How did you find me?" Hanwoo asked aloud, though he knew Silthara would respond telepathically. Images flowed into his mind. Silthara had used ancient technology buried in its desert home to track Hanwoo's genetic signature across the galaxy. The journey had taken months, traveling through space in ways humans did not yet understand. "Why did you come all this way?" More images came. Hanwoo saw himself from Silthara's perspective the moment they first met. He watched his own hands cleaning the creature's wounds, felt Silthara's surprise at receiving kindness from a stranger. Then he saw darker images. The Devourers were still hunting, moving from world to world, searching for survivors of Silthara's people. But they were also searching for something else. The knowledge Silthara guarded included the location of other, ancient libraries hidden throughout the galaxy. If the Devourers found these places, they would become unstoppable. Silthara had realized that staying on the desert planet made the libraries vulnerable. The creature needed to keep moving, staying ahead of the hunters. But it also needed someone to trust, someone who could help preserve the ancient knowledge if anything happened. Hanwoo had been the first being in centuries to show Silthara mercy without expecting anything in return. That act of simple kindness had created a bond stronger than the creature had felt since losing its own people. "You want to stay near me?" Hanwoo said, understanding. Silthara's mental voice was like wind through deep caves. The creature had decided that protecting Hanwoo was now its sacred duty. Just as it had once guarded ancient libraries, it would now guard the human who had saved its life. Over the following weeks, Hanwoo began to notice strange things. Nari mentioned that the motion sensors around their station had been triggering at night, but security cameras showed nothing. The large predators that usually hunted in the forest seemed to have moved away from their area entirely. One morning, Hanwoo found massive scratches on a tree near their home. They were too big and too deep to have been made by any earth animal. When he examined them closely, he realized they were warnings, messages carved in the ancient script Silthara had taught him. The scratches said, "Safe here," in the Serpent's language. Hanwoo started leaving food at the edge of the forest. Not the processed meals humans ate, but the mineral supplements Silthara needed to stay healthy. Each morning, the containers were empty. Sometimes, late at night, he would walk to his bedroom window and look out at the forest. More than once, he caught a glimpse of golden scales moving between the trees, reflecting moonlight like liquid metal. Nari began to comment on how peaceful their home felt compared to other research stations. She had worked at facilities that dealt with constant equipment failures and animal intrusions, but their station ran smoothly. Even the weather seemed calmer around their mountain. "It is like we have a guardian angel," she said one evening as they watched the sunset from their porch. Hanwoo nearly choked on his coffee. "What makes you say that?" "I do not know. I just feel safe here, like something is watching over us. She was more right than she knew. From his mental connection with Silthara, Hanwu understood that the creature spent most of its time hidden in the deeper forest, but it was always aware of their location. The ancient being could sense threats from miles away, and had already prevented several dangerous situations without Hanwu or Nari ever knowing. A rock slide that would have damaged their power generators had been quietly diverted. A gas leak from their heating system had been sealed before it could become deadly. Wild animals that might have attacked humans walking alone were gently encouraged to hunt elsewhere. Silthara had become their invisible protector, repaying Hanwu's kindness by keeping his new family safe. But Hanwu also sensed something else in Silthara's thoughts. The creature was no longer just guarding him out of duty. Over the months of watching Hanwu's daily life, seeing his kindness to Nari and his care for the small things around their home, Silthara had begun to feel something it had not experienced since losing its own people. Love. Not romantic love, but the deep affection of a being who had found family again after centuries of loneliness. Hanwu had given Silthara more than medical aid in that desert. He had given the ancient creature a reason to live beyond mere duty. Now Silthara had a new purpose. The libraries and ancient knowledge were still important, but protecting this small human family had become equally sacred. For the first time, in centuries, the last guardian of a dead civilization felt hope for the future. As Hanwu lay in bed that night, listening to Nari's quiet breathing beside him, he reached out with his mind toward the forest. He felt Silthara's presence immediately, patient and watchful. Thank you, he thought toward the darkness. The mental response came back warm and certain. Silthara would guard them always, as long as the ancient heart still beat in its massive chest. Neither of them knew that in a few years this bond would be tested in ways they could not imagine. Hanjin was 5 years old when the dream started. He would wake up in the middle of the night, telling his parents about flying through space and seeing the world through golden eyes. Nari thought they were just a child's imagination. But Hanwu recognized something deeper. The boy described things he had never seen before. Star patterns that matched systems Hanwu had visited during his expedition. Creatures that looked exactly like the devourers Silthara had shown him in mental images. Most telling of all, Hanjin drew pictures of a massive serpent with scales that shined like liquid gold. "Where did you see this dragon, little one?" Hanwu asked, sitting beside his son's bed after another vivid dream. "He lives in the forest," Hanjin said simply. "He watches our house to keep the bad things away. He likes us very much." Nari overheard from the doorway. "Children have such active imaginations," she said, but Hanwu noticed the worried look in her eyes. The truth was that Hanjin had inherited some sensitivity to Silthara's telepathic abilities. The connection between the ancient creature and Hanwu had grown so strong over the past 2 years that it was affecting the child as well. Hanjin was receiving fragments of Silthara's memories and emotions through the psychic link. Hanwu knew he should tell Nari about Silthara, but how could he explain without sounding insane? His wife was a practical woman who worked with scientific equipment every day. The idea of a telepathic alien dragon living in their forest would be hard for anyone to accept. The decision was taken out of his hands on a cold morning in late autumn. Jin had been playing in the yard behind their research station, while Nari worked inside and Hanwu gathered firewood. The boy was building a fort out of fallen branches, talking quietly to himself as children do. But when Hanwu came back with an armload of wood, Hanjin was gone. "Nari!" Hanwu called, dropping the firewood. "Where is Hanjin?" His wife came, running from the station. "He was just here. I checked on him 5 minutes ago." They searched everywhere around the buildings, calling Hanjin's name. Their voices echoed off the mountain walls, but there was no answer. Hanwu felt panic rising in his chest. The forest was full of deep ravines and unstable rock formations. A small child could easily fall and be hurt badly. "I am calling the rescue team," Nari said, her voice shaking. But Hanwu was already reaching out with his mind, searching for the familiar presence he had grown to know so well. The mental connection with Silthara was stronger than ever, and he felt the creature's response immediately. Images flooded his thoughts. Han Jin had wandered away from the house, following a rabbit toward the old canyon system. The boy had climbed down into a narrow ravine and gotten stuck on a ledge 20 feet below the surface. He was scared but unhurt, calling for help in a voice too small to carry far. More images came. Silthara was already moving, sliding through the forest faster than any human could run. The ancient creature would reach Han Jin in minutes. "I know where he is," Han Wu told Nari. "Follow me." They ran through the trees, branches catching at their clothes. Han Wu led them straight toward the canyon, guided by the images Silthara was sending. Nari did not ask how he knew the way. She just followed, fear for her child overriding everything else. They reached the edge of the ravine just as Silthara arrived from the other direction. Nari stopped dead, her mouth falling open in shock. The massive serpent was even more impressive than Han Wu remembered, easily 40 feet long and as thick as a tree trunk. Its golden scales caught the morning sunlight and threw it back in brilliant flashes. But Nari's shock turned to terror as Silthara began to descend into the ravine. From her perspective, a giant monster was approaching her trapped child. "Get away from him!" she screamed, grabbing rocks to throw at the creature. "Nari, stop!" Han Wu caught her arm. "It is trying to help. That thing is going to eat our son." Han Wu held her as she struggled to break free. Below them, Silthara moved. With incredible gentleness for such a massive being, the creature's great head approached Han Jin slowly, amber eyes soft and kind. The boy showed no fear at all. "Dragon," he said happily, "I knew you would come help me." Silthara carefully lifted Han Jin with its mouth, holding the child as gently as a mother cat carries a kitten. The ancient serpent climbed back up the ravine walls with smooth, controlled movements, never jolting or scaring the boy. When Silthara reached the top, it placed Han Jin safely on solid ground. The child immediately ran to his parents, but he turned back to wave at the creature. "Thank you, dragon," Han Jin called out. "Can I visit you again soon?" Nari pulled her son behind her, staring at Silthara with wide eyes. The serpent remained, perfectly still, making no threatening moves. Its great head tilted slightly as it looked at Han Wu, waiting. "Nari," Han Wu said quietly, "I need to tell you something. This is Silthara. It has been protecting our family for 2 years." "Protecting us?" Nari's voice was barely a whisper. Han Wu nodded toward the creature. "It followed me from the expedition. It has been living in our forest, keeping us safe. You knew about this thing? It is not a thing. Silthara is intelligent, more intelligent than humans, and it cares about us." As if responding to its name, Silthara lowered its massive head closer to the ground. Han Wu felt the familiar touch of the creature's mind against his own, but this time something different happened. Silthara was reaching out to Nari as, Nari gasped and stepped backward as images began flowing into her thoughts. She saw the past 2 years from Silthara's perspective. Every night the creature had circled their home, checking for dangers. Every storm it had used its body to shield their power lines from falling trees. Every time wild animals had approached their house, Silthara had gently encouraged them to hunt elsewhere. She saw the rock slide that would have destroyed their garage, quietly diverted by careful applications of the creature's massive strength. She saw the gas leak that could have killed them in their sleep, sealed by Silthara melting metal with precisely controlled heat from its breath. Most importantly, she felt the creature's emotions. There was no hunger or aggression in Silthara's mind. Instead, Nari felt overwhelming love and protectiveness. The ancient being loved their family as deeply as any human guardian could. "Oh," Nari said softly, tears starting in her eyes. "Oh, I understand now." Silthara's mental voice reached her clearly for the first time. The creature's thoughts were gentle, like an old grandfather speaking to a beloved grandchild. It apologized for frightening her and explained how much joy the family had brought to its long, lonely existence. Han Jin pulled away from his mother and walked toward Silthara without fear. The massive serpent lowered its head until it was level with the boy, who reached out to touch the golden scales. "I told Mama and Papa about you," Hanjin said. "But they did not believe me until now." Silthara's response came as warm mental laughter that all three humans could feel. The creature was amused by the child's honesty and delighted that the family was finally together in truth. Nari took a hesitant step forward. "You really have been taking care of us?" Images flowed into her mind again. Every act of protection, every danger prevented, every night spent watching over their peaceful sleep. Silthara had found new purpose in guarding this small human family, and they had given the ancient creature something it had lost centuries ago: hope. "Thank you," Nari said, her voice thick with emotion. "I am sorry I was afraid." Silthara's mental voice was warm with understanding. Fear was natural when protecting one's young. The creature respected Nari's maternal instincts and harbored no hurt feelings about her initial reaction. Over the following days, the family began to openly interact with their unusual guardian. Hanjin was thrilled to have his space dragon friend finally revealed. He would sit by the forest edge after dinner, chattering to Silthara about his day while the creature listened patiently. Nari gradually overcame her fear as she witnessed Silthara's gentle nature. The ancient being was incredibly careful around the humans, always aware of its massive size and strength. When Hanjin wanted to climb on the creature's back, Silthara would lie perfectly still, making sure the boy was safe. Hanwu felt a deep satisfaction watching his wife and son accept Silthara into their lives. The secret he had carried for years was finally in the open, and his family was whole in a way he had never expected. But in quiet moments, when Silthara shared deeper memories, Hanwu sensed something troubling on the horizon. The ancient creatures' thoughts sometimes turned dark with worry about the Devourers and the possibility that they might eventually find Earth. For now, though, there was peace. A human family and an ancient alien had found each other across the vast emptiness of space, connected by simple kindness and growing into something greater than the sum of their parts. They had become a family in the truest sense, bound not by blood but by love and mutual protection. And in the years to come, that bond would be tested in ways none of them could imagine. 3 years of peaceful life passed quickly for the Han family. Hanjin was now 8 years old and spent most afternoons after school talking with Silthara at the edge of their forest home. The boy had learned to understand the creature's mental voice as clearly as spoken words, and their friendship had grown deeper than anyone could have imagined. Nari had built a small shelter near the tree line, where Silthara could rest during storms. She left food there regularly, and had even learned to recognize some of the ancient creatures' emotional states through their weak telepathic connection. The family felt complete in a way that would have seemed impossible years before. Hanwu continued his research work, but now with access to knowledge that no other human possessed. Silthara shared fragments of ancient science that helped Hanwu make breakthroughs in energy production and space travel. He published papers that amazed the scientific community, though he never revealed the true source of his insights. Everything changed on a cold winter morning when Silthara suddenly appeared at their back door, moving faster than Hanwu had ever seen the creature travel. The ancient serpent scales had lost their usual golden glow and appeared dull with fear. Images flooded into Hanwu's mind before he could even greet his friend. Space, darkness, ships like black scars against the stars moving toward a small blue planet. The Devourers had found Earth. "What is wrong?" Nari asked, seeing the terror on her husband's face. "They are coming," Hanwu said quietly. "The creatures that destroyed Silthara's people. They have found us." Hanjin ran to Silthara and placed his small hand on the creature's massive head. Through their connection, the boy saw the same images his father had received. Hundreds of Devourer ships, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities, approaching the solar system like a plague of metal locusts. "How long do we have?" Hanwu asked. Silthara's mental response was grim. The Devourers moved slowly between star systems, feeding on any life they encountered along the way. They would reach Earth in 6 months, maybe less. Over the following weeks, reports began appearing on the news that confused Earth's scientists. Deep space monitoring stations detected large objects moving toward the solar system, but their composition and purpose remained unknown. Government officials issued calm statements about investigating the anomalies, but Han Wu could see the worry in their eyes during news conferences. He tried to contact his old expedition commanders, hoping to warn them about what was coming. But who would believe that he had learned about an alien invasion from a telepathic dragon living in his backyard? Even Dr. Park Soo, his mentor, politely suggested that Han Wu might be working too hard and should take a vacation. As the weeks passed, Silthara grew more agitated. The ancient creature spent long hours sharing memories with Han Wu, showing him the last days of its civilization. The Devourers did not simply conquer planets, they consumed everything. All life, all energy, even the basic elements that made up the world itself. They left behind empty husks drifting through space, dead rocks where thriving worlds had once existed. There must be a way to stop them, Han Wu said during one of their mental conversations. Your people fought them for 1,000 years. You must have found some weakness. Silthara's response came heavy with ancient grief. Its people had discovered that the Devourers could be harmed by specific sound frequencies, vibrations that disrupted their molecular structure. But generating those frequencies required the combined effort of dozens of Silthara's kind, working together in perfect harmony. Only one of the ancient guardians remained alive. Silthara could produce the destroying frequency, but the effort would cost everything. The creature's body was already weakened by age and old wounds. Creating a harmonic pulse powerful enough to destroy the entire Devourer fleet would kill Silthara instantly. No, Han Wu said aloud, causing Nari to look up from her evening work. There has to be another way. But as the months passed and the alien ships grew closer, it became clear that conventional human weapons would be useless. Earth's military forces prepared for battle, but their missiles and energy weapons were designed to fight other humans, not creatures that could devour the energy itself and grow stronger. The first Devourer scouts reached the outer edges of the solar system in early spring. They attacked the research stations on Mars first, consuming the facilities and everyone inside them in minutes. Videos from the final transmissions showed creatures like living nightmares, all teeth and claws and hungry darkness. Panic began to spread across Earth as the full scope of the threat became clear. Some governments tried to organize evacuation ships, but there was nowhere to run. The Devourers had tracked humanity's scent across the galaxy. They would follow any fleeing ships and consume them in the emptiness between stars. Han Jin sensed his parents' growing fear, even though they tried to hide it from him. The boy spent more time with Silthara, drawing comfort from the ancient creature's presence. Through their bond, he could feel how much Silthara loved the family and how desperately the creature wanted to protect them. One evening, as they sat together in the forest clearing, Silthara began teaching Han Jin about courage and sacrifice. The creature shared stories of its people's greatest heroes, beings who had given their lives to save others. It spoke of the importance of protecting those you love, even when the cost was everything you had. Han Jin listened with the serious attention that children give to important lessons, not fully understanding why Silthara was telling him these stories now. Will the bad creatures hurt Mama and Papa? Han Jin asked. Silthara's mental voice was gentle but honest. The Devourers would consume everything on Earth if they were not stopped. Every human, every animal, every plant. Nothing would remain. But you will stop them, right? The boy said with the absolute faith that children have in their protectors. Silthara's response came with deep sadness mixed with fierce determination. Yes, the ancient creature would stop them. But the boy needed to be brave, because stopping the Devourers would require a great sacrifice. Han Jin did not understand what sacrifice meant, but he felt the weight of Silthara's emotions through their connection. Something important was going to happen, something that would change everything. As summer approached and the main Devourer fleet entered the solar system, Earth's defenses crumbled quickly. The alien ships were too large, too numerous, and too hungry to be stopped by conventional means. Military commanders issued desperate orders, while civilians huddled in shelters that would provide no real protection. Han Wu watched the news reports with growing horror. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were being consumed in minutes. Entire continents went dark as the devourers fed on everything they contained. The alien fleet was approaching Earth itself, and there was nothing human technology could do to stop them. In the forest behind their mountain home, Silthara began to glow with an internal light that grew brighter each day. The ancient creature was preparing for its final act, gathering every bit of remaining life force for one last service to the beings it had come to love as family. Han Wu felt the creature's intention through their mental bond and tried desperately to find another solution. He contacted every scientist he knew, shared every piece of ancient knowledge Silthara had taught him, hoping someone could find a different way. But as the devourer ships filled the sky above Earth like a black plague, Han Wu realized that his friend's sacrifice might be the only chance humanity had for survival. The final battle was coming, and it would cost everything the Han family held dear. Nari began to sense the approaching loss through her weak connection to Silthara. She did not fully understand what was happening, but she could feel the ancient creature's sadness and determination. Something terrible was about to happen, something that would save them all but destroy the being who had become like family. As night fell and the devourer's ships began their final approach to Earth's surface, Silthara looked at the family it had protected for so many years and prepared to give them the greatest gift possible. Its life, freely given, so that they might live. The devourer ships filled the sky like a black storm that covered the entire Earth. Each ship was the size of a mountain, and there were hundreds of them. They moved slowly through the atmosphere, consuming everything below them. Where they passed, cities became empty craters and forests turned to dust. Han Wu stood at the window of their underground shelter, watching the news feeds from around the world. London was gone. Tokyo had vanished in minutes. The creatures inside the ships poured out like living darkness, eating everything they touched. "How long before they reach us?" Nari asked, holding Han Jin close to her. 6 hours, maybe less," Han Wu replied. Through the thick shelter walls, he could feel Silthara's presence in the forest above. The ancient creature was glowing brighter now, its golden scales pulsing with energy that had been building for days. Han Wu knew what his friend was preparing to do, and the knowledge felt like a weight crushing his heart. Han Jin pulled away from his mother and pressed his face against the small window. "I want to see Silthara," he said. "It is too dangerous," Nari said. "We need to stay here where it is safe." But Han Jin shook his head. Through his psychic connection with the creature, he could feel something important happening. Silthara was calling to him, not with words but with pure emotion, love, sadness, and a need to say goodbye. "Silthara wants to talk to me," the boy said. "This might be the last time." Han Wu looked at his wife. They both understood what Han Jin meant, even though the boy himself did not fully grasp what was about to happen. 5 minutes, Nari said finally. "Then we come back down here." They climbed the stairs to the surface where the air tasted of smoke and fear. In the distance, the black ships moved like storm clouds, getting closer with each passing moment. But in their forest clearing, Silthara waited. The ancient serpent was magnificent in its final hour. Every scale glowed with internal light, and the air around the creature shimmered with barely contained energy. Silthara had never looked more beautiful or more dangerous. Han Jin ran to his friend without hesitation. The massive head lowered to the boy's level, and amber eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations looked at the child with infinite tenderness. "You are going away, are you not?" Han Jin asked. Silthara's mental voice was gentle as summer rain. "Yes, little one." It was time for the creature to take a long journey, one from which it would not return. "Can I come with you?" The ancient being's response came wrapped in such love that all three humans felt tears in their eyes. Han Jin needed to stay with his parents and grow up to become a wise man like his father. Silthara's journey was one it had to take alone. "Will it hurt?" the boy asked with the direct honesty of children. Silthara shared an image of a candle, flame going out peacefully in a gentle breeze. There would be no pain, only the satisfaction of a duty completed and a family saved. Han Wu knelt beside his son and placed a hand on Silthara's warm scales. "Thank you," he said aloud, "for everything. For saving us, for protecting our family, for giving us love we never expected to find." The creature's response filled their minds with memories. The first moment Han Wu had given water to a dying stranger in the desert, years of quiet guardianship watching over the family while they slept safely. Han Jin's laughter as he played with his space dragon friend, Nari's gradual acceptance and the warmth of being welcomed into a human home. Silthara had lived for centuries, but the years with this family had been the happiest of its long existence. Protecting them had given the ancient guardian a reason to continue when all its own people were gone. "I love you too," Han Jin said simply, hugging the creature's massive head. In the distance, the devourer ships drew closer. Their shadow began to fall across the mountain where the family lived. Soon they would be close enough to detect the human settlement, and then it would be too late. Silthara lifted its head and looked toward the approaching fleet. The creature's golden glow intensified, and Han Wu felt the enormous power building inside his friend's body. Every cell, every scale, every drop of ancient blood was becoming a weapon of unimaginable force. "You need to go underground now," Han Wu told his family. "Quickly." Nari took Han Jin's hand, but the boy resisted. He did not want to leave Silthara alone at the end. The ancient creature sent one final message directly to the child's mind. Images of Han Jin growing up strong and kind like his father. The boy becoming a scientist who would help humans and aliens understand each other. A future where the love between species that had begun with one act of kindness would spread across the galaxy. Silthara had seen this future in dreams and knew it would come to pass, but only if the boy lived to make it happen. "Go," Han Wu said gently. "Silthara wants us to be safe." Reluctantly, Han Jin followed his parents back to the underground shelter. As the heavy door sealed behind them, the boy pressed against the small window, watching his friend prepare for the final battle. Above ground, Silthara began to move. The ancient creature slithered out of the forest and positioned itself in the center of the valley, directly beneath the approaching devourer fleet. The ships were close enough now that individual creatures could be seen moving inside them, hungry, shadows preparing to consume another world. The lead ships detected Silthara and began to descend, recognizing one of the ancient enemies their kind had hunted across the galaxy. They had found the last guardian, and they meant to devour it slowly, savoring the final destruction of a hated foe. But as they approached, Silthara began to sing. The sound was not heard with ears, but felt in the very atoms of everything around. The creature. It was a harmonic frequency that had once been sung by hundreds of Silthara's people in perfect unity. Now one ancient voice carried the entire song alone. The frequency built rapidly, resonating through the air and into space itself. In the underground shelter, Han Jin felt the vibration in his bones and knew that his friend was keeping the promise made in a desert years ago. Silthara was protecting the family that had shown it love. The harmonic pulse reached the devourer ships and tore through them like a cosmic scream. The frequency was precisely tuned to disrupt the molecular bonds that held the creatures together. In seconds, beings that had consumed entire worlds dissolved into nothing more than dust and memory. Ship after ship crumbled as the destroying song continued. The black fleet that had terrified humanity began to fall from the sky in pieces, their crews destroyed before they could understand what was happening to them. Across the earth, the remaining devourer forces felt the frequency and shared the same fate. Every creature, every ship, every trace of the ancient enemy vanished as Silthara's final gift spread around the planet. In the shelter, Han Jin cried out as he felt Silthara's life force draining away. The creature was putting everything into the harmonic pulse, burning its very essence to power the weapon that would save humanity. "Hold on," the boy whispered, pressing his hands against the window. "Please hold on." But through their connection, Han Jin felt Silthara's peaceful acceptance. The ancient guardian had completed its purpose. The family it loved would live, and that was worth any price. The harmonic pulse reached its peak and then slowly faded. In the valley above, Silthara's massive form lay still, its golden scales dim and lifeless. The creature that had survived the fall of civilizations and wandered the galaxy alone for centuries had finally found rest. Han Jin felt the moment when the connection between them went silent. The warm presence that had been part of his life for 3 years was gone, leaving an emptiness that felt like losing a piece of his own heart. But in that emptiness, the boy also felt something else: pride, love, and the absolute certainty that Silthara's sacrifice had been given freely and gladly. The family emerged from their shelter to find a world transformed. The sky was clear, the Devourer ships reduced to scattered debris that would burn up harmlessly in the atmosphere. Humanity had been saved by an ancient alien who had chosen love over survival. Years later, when Han Jin had grown into a man who dedicated his life to fostering peace between species, he would often visit the crystal memorial built where Silthara had made its final stand. The inscription, written in both Korean and the ancient Guardian's language, read simply, "Here lies a protector who found family among the stars and chose love over life." And sometimes, when the wind blew just right through the crystal spires, visitors claimed they could hear an echo of the harmonic song that had saved the world. A reminder that love, once given freely, never truly dies but continues to resonate across time and space, touching hearts that have yet to be born. Han Jin would smile when he heard those stories, knowing they were true. Silthara's love lived on in every act of kindness between species, every moment of understanding between different forms of life, and every time someone chose compassion over fear. The ancient Guardian's greatest victory was not destroying the Devourer fleet, but proving that love could bridge any gap, heal any wound, and transform even the loneliest being into part of a family that would last forever.